Hello everyone and welcome back to another episode of Q&Play, my monthly Q&A where I answer your questions in a rambly, unscripted format. First question comes from Lium of Fekohar. Not sure why I'm asking this, but I'm running a campaign for the first time for a friend and a few new players. It's a 5e module, but the problem is that I don't know what would be easy to run. What I do know, however, is that I don't want to run Lost Mine. I currently have a copy of Tomb of Annihilation and Dragon Heist. Should I run Dragon Heist, or is there an easier module that doesn't include Lost Mines of Phandelver? Okay, so for starters, don't run Tomb of Annihilation for new players. I think that adventure is awesome. I really like Tomb of Annihilation from what I've read. However, for new players, it might be a bit opaque. It can be hard for new players to get invested into that game, especially with the way it's balanced. I don't think it's killer hard, but it can be rough on people who are brand new to the game and who have never played before. I think Waterdeep Dragon Heist is a great module. I don't know if it would be perfect for new players. Again, Lost Mines of Phandelver is really the perfect new player module, and if you don't want to run that, I think Dragon Heist is also a really good one. Another great one for new players is Ghosts of Saltmarsh. That one is really great. And I actually think that the Feywild module, Wild Beyond the Witchlight, would also be alright for new players. It offers a lot of choices and avenues for them to take, and it details a lot of stuff for the Dungeon Master, making it easy for you to run as well. So I think that is also on my list of modules I would run for new players. So yeah, if you don't want to run Lost Mines of Phandelver, those are also good substitutes, but if you're going to take away anything from that, take away that you probably shouldn't run Tomb of Annihilation for brand new players. Next question comes from Adam Watson. What do you do when you encounter writer's block in a campaign? Do you have something you do to help you get the creative juices going? So yeah, writer's block can be really rough, especially when you're playing D&D. A lot of DMs have plans and outlines for their story, but given how long campaigns can be, the creative process of creating the story lasts a long time. My second campaign is almost at its 1-year anniversary, meaning I've been developing the story for a year, and damn, ideas and concepts, themes, all that has changed drastically over the course of this year, and yeah, over the course of that time, I've run into writer's block on a few occasions. The main thing is when I get sort of trapped in my own story, if you know what I mean. I have all of these ideas, but I don't know how to implement them into an actual game. It can be really hard, especially since I don't know how the game is going to turn out, right? I have to think about what players are going to do. And a lot of times, my players, they go along with the narrative that I sort of have in mind, but sometimes unexpected things are going to happen. For example, in the last episode of Campaign Diary, Freya Solvig, one of the player characters, died, and all of the story that I had in mind for her character basically became impossible because she was dead, and now I need to create new storylines for Kyla's new character, Talia Fairchild. That sort of unexpected thing can happen in your D&D games, and sometimes you gotta think on the fly to create something new. Luckily for me, the main way that I get rid of that writer's block is to use loose ideas that I've already developed. For example, Talia Fairchild went to the school Bothwell Academy of the Arcane, and I needed some sort of character for her to hook onto during that story, because she went to the school, she would know people, and I wanted Kyla to have an NPC to interact with. And a few months ago, for some reason, I got the idea of pastel-loving necromancy professor in my head. I don't know where it came from, but I had the idea in my head and I was like, I think that would work. And so, Professor Alice Feline, the chipper professor of necromancy, was born, and she has become a favorite among the party. So that's one avenue. The other one that I sort of talked about earlier and then completely abandoned is when I have so many elements in my story that I sort of get trapped. That is something that is imposed by myself, and it's a problem with broad world building that I often do. I like having a lot of different world building elements. I like introducing a lot of diverse and cool parts of my world to my players because they enjoy that. However, the problem is when it comes to actually implementing that into the story itself, then we have a problem. So yeah, sometimes I need to chill out, sit down, and start streamlining my world building. Focus the plot around central themes, central characters, so that we can move the plot forward and not get bogged down by all of this extra stuff that I have introduced into my story. There is a series that I've kind of given up on doing for a variety of reasons I may talk about one day. But yeah, it's a world building series where I would talk about creating the story and world of your D&D game and the unique challenges that come with it, and the problems with writer's block that a lot of DMs face, because DM writer's block is slightly different from writer's block. In fact, writing a D&D game in general can have its own unique challenges, and I wanted to talk about that, but I'm not so certain that series is going to happen anymore. I don't know. Still thinking it over, but yeah, that's my advice to you, my friend, on how to avoid and overcome DM writer block. Question from Khrow. What's your favorite D&D encounter you've had for your players, and how did it go? Bonus. Favorite exotic in Destiny 2? My favorite encounter I've run for my players was a mirror fight against alternate versions of themselves. I loved this battle. Essentially, the way it worked, in my world, there is this eldritch Lovecraftian realm called the Void, filled with creatures that I describe as horrible monsters that consume possibility. They are entropy incarnate, and to symbolize that, I had them summon alternate versions of the characters, things that could have been but never were. And yeah, these alternate versions of the characters were essentially evil versions of the characters from timelines that never happened, possibilities that never occurred. And it was really fun, both from a story building perspective, because they got to see what their characters could have become. For example, the cleric of the party is a cleric of Iyun, and her arch nemesis throughout this campaign has been Orcus and his servants. Well, this alternate version of her is instead a cleric of Orcus, and them fighting was actually really cool. I love mirror fights. I love party versus party. I think that those fights can be really, really fun and really, really interesting if you do them right. Each alternate version of the party had interesting and fun abilities, and it was a tense battle with an epic arena. It was the first time I used a map from Sei and Peiku, who are by far my favorite D&D cartographers. They are absolutely phenomenal. I cannot recommend their work enough. It is incredible work. But yeah, it was the first time I used their map, and from then on I was hooked because it was so good. It was an epic arena, an epic fight with some cool backdrop, and I thought it was great. In terms of my favorite exotic in Destiny 2, my favorite exotic would have to be Bad Juju. I've been using this thing since year 1 of Destiny 1, since 2014, when it was a crappy exotic pulse rifle that I got out of my first ever exotic bounty. I remember I needed to do like 12 strike runs or something like that to get that done. The gun is amazing, and when I saw it return in D2, it was, my heart, it sang with joy because I had my baby back, and I could get all the super energy I wanted and slay the minions of the darkness without hesitation or remorse. It was awesome. Runner-ups would have to be Last Word for PvP is definitely one that I absolutely love, and I've also been a huge fan of the Destiny 2 version of No Time to Explain. That pulse rifle is great. But frankly, a lot of the exotics in D2 feel really awesome. It's hard to play Destiny and find a gun that doesn't resonate with you. Bungie are so good at designing weapons that every gun just feels good, even generic legendaries. And every exotic, for the most part, feels great, with the only exception being like Salvation's Grip and stuff like that. But yeah, I really like Bad Juju. It'll always be my favorite gun ever since year 1 of D1. Next question from Renegade Hero. So my question is a weird one. Is it bad if you did a D&D campaign with copyrighted characters? Example, if you did a story where a portal sent Batman and Sonic to a world together, is that possible to do? Thank you, Crispy. Keep up the good work. Okay, there are 2 ways I'm interpreting this question. The first, if you're just playing a D&D home game that's like a Super Smash Bros-esque battle royale with a bunch of different characters working together or fighting each other or whatever, that's fine. There is no law that will prevent you from running around your backyard and pretending to be Darth Vader or Jon Snow or whatever, right? So, yeah. In that same vein, you can play D&D as whatever characters you want, copyrighted or not, that's fine. Now, streaming, that gets a little bit more complicated. If you want to stream a D&D game with copyrighted and trademarked characters, it definitely depends on the company. I know that there are definitely companies that care and definitely companies that do not care at all. So, yeah, there is that. Of course, this is all keeping in mind that companies that own the trademarks to these characters, they can just change their policy whenever they want. It's their characters, it's their company, they can do that. So yeah, you just have to keep that in mind. But I think I'm going beyond the question. If your question is just, can I play a D&D game with Sonic and Batman? Yeah, that's probably fine. Question from Switchblade X89. In the games you've been involved in, what was your favorite character to play as? So, Generally, when it comes to characters that I enjoy role-playing, I mean, I enjoy role-playing a whole variety of different characters, but characters that sort of like fit my voice range are the best. So characters that kind of go into the high pitch range, a lot of undead villains, I like that a lot. If I can play wizard types, lich types, that's really fun for me. I also like characters that let me monologue at least a little bit. I like giving villainous monologues and stuff like that for my players. Even monologues that come from regal characters, think Tywin Lannister from Game of Thrones, those sort of speeches are really, really fun. Now, of course, I can't do it too much because then I'm hogging the spotlight, and there's nothing worse than a DM who hogs the spotlight from their players, but that's the sort of thing that I really, really enjoy. Now, in terms of characters I like playing as a player, I really like playing like Nervous Bean type characters, or even characters that are a bit reserved in general. If you've seen my video on Caroline and Kalia, you'll know what I'm talking about there. Or if you've watched Dice Goblins where I played Crumble, you'll know that I like playing this like more reserved personality with my player characters. But when I'm a DM playing NPCs, those big grand monologues, that's where my heart lies. I don't get to do those a lot, and they're really, really fun when they happen and when they really hit with my players. Question from Pepjin Poolman. Do you have any ideas for encounters, dungeons, NPCs, monsters, etc. that didn't make it into your campaign? And are you willing to share them? And why didn't they make the cut? So the first thing that comes to mind is I have had a Firbolg NPC stored in my folder and in my head for the longest time. I have always wanted to do a Firbolg NPC because they're a really cool race. I really love Caduceus Clay, Talison's performance as that character. I love the lore that Matt gave them and the sort of personality that he gave the Clay family in Critical Role, and I really want to play something not like that particularly, but of that same attitude in my games. I think Firbolgs are a really, really cool race in D&D. However, I just never ever did it. I like have the portrait in my folder, it's ready to go. I even have the name Neris Fogheart. My party really loved the Firbolg NPC in my first campaign, and I don't know why I don't create another one. It's just, I don't know. I do have a couple of NPC roles that haven't been filled yet. Like, for example, the party don't have a reliable magic vendor to use in this campaign. Like, in the first campaign, they had a goblin trapped in the body of a cat. And he was awesome. His name was Grimshaw, and he's like my favorite NPC I've ever created, or at least one of my favorite NPCs I've ever created. He was a really fun character. But in this campaign, we don't have such a character, and maybe a Firbolg may fit that sort of bill. I don't know, but yeah, that's the first one that comes to mind. Another big set piece that I've wanted to use for so long, but haven't been able to use is the Beached Kraken map from Seiyan Peiku. Essentially, they have a map that is a kraken that has run aground, it's on the beach, dead, and there's like scaffolding all over it. It is a really cool map, both from a looks perspective, as well as from a gameplay mechanic perspective. I love maps that offer some verticality. It adds a new dimension to the battle and makes it a little bit more dynamic. However, again, never found the time to use it. It was used as like a roleplay area. The party found the beach kraken, found some kobolds scavenging it for meat, or not kobolds. They found some gnolls scavenging it for meat because, you know, they're gnolls and they're always hungry and all that. But yeah, they never actually fought anything there, which I think is a shame. I'm trying to think of quest lines that have been 100% cut from the campaign. I'm not getting anything in my head right now. There was an idea that I had for the BBEG of this campaign. Initially, I wanted to make it a genie, but I decided to change that into something a bit different. There's a part of me that wishes I stuck to that sort of vibe because I wanted this campaign to be a bit more boots on the ground, but I ended up going a little bit bigger with the BBEG. I like the BBEG I've created for this campaign, the Grand Sentinel, supplicant to the new god, the mysterious eldritch horror that lies at the bottom of the ocean. Yeah, I like that. It's cool. However, I think the genie idea had some interesting quirks to it that I liked, but I never really hooked onto it as well as I hooked onto the idea of the new god, the new god's cult, and all of this Lovecraftian stuff, mostly because at the time of writing this campaign, I was really deep into a lot of analog horror where Lovecraftian themes are very present, and that means that, you know, that bled into the way I prepped my campaign. So that idea got cut. There are so many ideas that got cut on my campaign, I can't list them all, but yeah, those are the ones that just immediately come to my mind. Final question comes from William M. What is your favorite monster in D&D? What is your favorite character you or another player have made? how did you realize you were asexual? So the first question I answered in my Ginny D D&D tag, the second one I answered in this very video, so we will move on to the final question. How did you realize you were ace? One of the big reasons I decided to answer this one today is because today, if you're unaware, is a National Asexuality Celebration Visibility Day, all that stuff. And yeah, it's a big deal to the people in the community. And so yeah, I wanted to answer this question to sort of bring a little bit of awareness, a little bit of visibility, and be a little bit transparent with you guys. I know at least some of you guys come to this channel because you enjoy me, Crispy, the person behind the camera. And yeah, I really appreciate that. I wanted to give a little bit of my story, I guess. So, how did I realize I was ace? Well, if you have watched Jaden Animation's Realizing I'm Not Straight video or I'm Not Straight video, that video is amazing and is a pretty good glimpse into the same sort of mindset that I had going through my early life. When I was in junior high, I was so confused. It made no sense to me once I got to middle school why people were interested in a relationship. I went to this very AP style honors classes, advanced placement class school, meaning first and foremost, you had no time for a relationship. And also, a relationship, doesn't that just cost you a lot of time, stress, emotional damage in junior high and high school? Like, what's the purpose of having a relationship? I don't understand the appeal. It didn't make any sense to me. And so going through high school, I just figured like, eventually it's gonna make sense. Eventually everything's just gonna fall into place because that's how I framed it in my head. And sure enough, it didn't. I didn't start falling in love when I got to X age. I had no interest in any of the things that a lot of my peers did. And that's when I started to think, man, maybe I should like think about this. Maybe I should ponder this a little bit more than just, oh, I'll just wait until I find the one. At this point in my story, I'm a senior in high school, and yeah, that's pretty damn young, but I felt like I should have felt something at this point. So I started looking into it, and I learned about asexuality and aromanticism, because yes, I am both. I know that says Asian asexual in the bio, but you know, Asian aro ace doesn't have the same ring to it, so you know, we're just gonna keep it the way it is. Yeah, I'm also aromantic. I'm both. And that's how I figured it out. It did take a while, but I figured it out, and now, a good bit later, I'm sitting here, and I'm at peace with who I am. I'm happy, and I am content. Very much content. I know it sounds cheesy, and it is very cheesy, but that puzzle that I was waiting to solve, it did end up getting finished. It just wasn't the shape that I thought it would be, and I think that that is okay. In fact, I think that's great. Thank you so much for listening to the end of this segment. It does mean a lot to me that you guys are so supportive, and I truly, really do appreciate it. I cannot stress that enough. Thank you all so much. And with that, we are going to close today's video. And that's where we're going to end today's episode of Q&Play. If you guys enjoyed it, then please do leave a like. If you want to see more of my content, then you can check out our Tabletop Tavern Tips series, where I go over general tips for both DMs and players, linked in the cards. And while you're there, subscribe to Crispy's Tavern to get more of our content right as it comes out. And finally, if you want to leave your own questions or thoughts, go down to the comments down below. If you can't think of a comment, leave the comment Forbidden West to reference the game I'm playing in the background and to let me know you made it to the end of the video. In essence, like, comment, subscribe. I will see you all next time. Farewell.